After Mozart and the chronology comes Beethoven, a composer who struck out in completely new and novel and revolutionary artistic directions. He changed the genre of the symphony and music altogether in a way that no composer who came after him could ever forget. Now, Beethoven's increasingly individual compositional voice began to really manifest in his late period. Most musicologists put Beethoven's work in the early, where he was very influenced by Mozart and Haydn, the middle, characterized by his stormy Fifth Symphony. And then his late period, out of which the Ninth Symphony comes. And at that point in his life, Beethoven was almost entirely deaf. Now, can you imagine the implications of deafness to a musician, to a composer, whose ability to hear, to synthesize sounds, is their livelihood and their means of expression and finding meaning in the world? And yet, out of this, he composed the largest and the longest symphony to date in music history, and one that, for one of the first times, included the human voice as a way of finding expression. Yet, we won't focus on the work's very famous choral finale, the Ode to Joy, whose extra musical message to liberty, to equality, to fraternity, to joy, really exhorts us to know that there is something better out there. There's something that really can lift us out of ourselves and galvanize us to find courage. But this week I want to focus on a more intrinsic musical message, the courage to be able to back one's own convictions and one's own beliefs, one's own faith and one's own musical beliefs to create this most sublime third movement that just comes out of stillness, that's this wonderful meditative state. This third movement, this Adagio molto, has two distinct sort of sections that are presented at the beginning. There's the Adagio molto, which literally means so much at ease, hugely at ease. And it is, as I said, meditative. It's in B-flat major. It starts off with this sort of a woodwind chorale just slipping in, and then this long spun, hardly moving violin melody. And there's a melody that then just comes in the relative key of D major that's marked Andante Moderato, sort of moving a little bit in a moderate way. And this is, again, slightly more hope could be seen to be welling up in this melody that climbs and climbs and climbs. Now, from a very practical point of view as a conductor, it's quite interesting because Beethoven was a pioneer of the bane of many kids' piano practice sessions, the metronome, tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. A lot of thought speaks to the fact that Beethoven's metronome was faulty, and so he tended to write very, very fast metronome marks to what perhaps the music needs. And now I'm not sure if that's right or not, but he wrote that the Adagio molto incantabile, the first section, has a marking of crotchet, quarter note, equals 60. So that means for each beat in each minute, there's 60. So one each second. And the next section was 63 beats per minute, which is infinitesimal variation. If you try and work that out, the difference between 60 beats in a minute and 63 beats in a minute, it's a little conductorial challenge to just imbue the second bit with a little more movement to get going, to give that sense of hope and of optimism, of just waking up out of this meditative state. Now, these two sections Beethoven subjects to some of the most beautiful treatment as he varies them, as he embellishes them, as he strips them down, as they really ascend to a sort of Elysium, an Elysium that he illustrates in his Ode to Joy. The audience response, of course, was just rapturous, and it's said that the mezzo-soprano soloist had to tap Beethoven on the shoulder because he was conducting. Of course, he couldn't hear anything, but he knew the music and he gesticulated wildly. After so many defeats in his life, the audience went crazy, and this mezzo soloist tapped him on the shoulder. Beethoven turned around, and in his last symphony of his life, he must have felt so vindicated by his courage to strike out in totally new directions.